Oh yeah, William, unfortunately, he's in Austria right now, and time zone wise, that doesn't work out too well
Yeah,
for
that's
him.
probably not very good.
So I'll send a recording over after the meeting, but
Okay.
yes, thank you. He sends his apologies for not being able to make it, but thanks for recording.
Well, it looks like we have a reasonable turnout here.
That's terrific.
And they're still coming. It's a popular place to be.
I certainly do want to thank all the students for joining us. You know, we're really doing this whole thing, hopefully to support you. And so it's really helpful, I think, not only that you're on this call, but that you can tell us the things that are working for you and the things that aren't working for you and what you think we might be able to do to get rid of some barriers and make this go forward, or make what you want go forward. You know, we're just you think of us as I don't know, this may offend everybody else, and I've never talked to anybody about it, but it's like we're workhorses, we're Morgans, we're ready to pull the wagon, but we're not directing the wagon, and we don't know what's in the wagon, but we want to help you get further down the road.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we definitely feel it. Sorry, I'm right by all the pipes in this house, so sorry there's a bit of background noise, but yeah, we want to thank you so much. We're sorry if communication was a bit sparse towards the end of the term. We've been doing a lot of waiting for administrative things to go through at the school, and hearing back from different people in administration about things which can always take frustratingly long time. But yeah, we're happy to, if you want to just go right into kind of catching you up about things we've been doing so far. Yeah, so we shared our plan with Principal Rawson, both the like a proposal about the changing the kind of initiative, the climate initiative, the curriculum initiative to make the general curriculum have more kind of interwoven topics around climate change. And before we did that, we met with a few teachers to talk about how they were doing, like how they best saw it. And essentially the real message we got from a lot of them is because the school doesn't have, the individual departments don't have a huge amount of ways to give teachers really strict restrictions about what they can teach. For example, like the history department, the only thing that they're actually mandatory to do is like they have to teach the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Well, that's
and
good.
Then yeah, everything else is completely up to the teacher. So in terms of actually getting the curriculum change, it's less about changing something massively administrative, like massively on the department level, in the sense that we can't really change the restrictions because there aren't many restrictions, and it's more about getting pressure from the administration. So Principal Rawson and Dean Wolf. So kind of with that, we went to Principal Rawson and we found out that actually there's a kind of current plan being drawn up called the Climate Action Plan by the trustees. And included in that is a big curriculum part. But for some reason, there's no students on that part of the planning, which we saw as kind of a bit wrong, seeing, you know, we're the ones who are going to have to digest the curriculum, etc. So we've emailed some of the people in charge of that and finally have been allowed to, invited to meet with them for their next kind of meeting. Sophia, I know you know a bit more about that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it was actually our club advisor who is leading the curriculum initiative that is very similar to ours. And we just learned about it for some reason. And but now we're going to start working together. The committee that he's ahead of is the sustainability committee, and
It's Andrew McTammany, right?
Yes, Mr. McTammany. So we are they meet every other week. So I think we'll try to have a kind of joint meeting probably once a month. And we will definitely be collaborating on projects in the future, hopefully. And I think a big goal that we have when working with them is to kind of publicize their work more, because they are doing a lot of work, but none of the students really know about it because it's never been talked about openly. So we're hoping to help them advertise themselves more and amongst the student body. And we also talked to Rawson about the year-long theme for next year of environmentalism. And that is one of the things that we're waiting to talk to Principal Rawson again about, because he said that he would take our proposal to other people in the administration and discuss it. So we're going to have another meeting with him after break. But for now, I don't think we sent you that proposal, so we can send you that if you'd like to see.
Sure.
Saphira, can you explain a little bit, just briefly, what you mean, a year-long proposal?
Yes, a year-long theme.
The
So
theme for the year.
yeah, the theme for the year. So like, it'll have a lot of different facets. So the main thing is kind of having a, the main purpose is to kind of create a platform for us to do a lot more work and have a lot more work kind of made transparent to the student body. We thought that we could have speakers and several open forums where students could discuss intersectional issues related to climate change. And Fee or Tanya or Alicia, do you want to elaborate on the rest?
Yeah, so essentially it was inspired by the coeducation theme kind of for the year that we had, I think 2 years ago, or maybe one at this point. But essentially it's just trying to really focus on bringing environmentalism to the forefront of the campus's kind of conscious for a really solid year, and hoping that kickstarts kind of a more general awareness about it. And it's actually pretty good timing, as the launching of the climate action plan by the trustees is supposed to be at the end of this year. So just kind of as that was being launched and introduced, having a year-long theme would work really smoothly with it. We talked to the trustee you guys kind of suggested we did about Ira Hefland, and that was a really great discussion. He was really super supportive of it. He raised it with the trustees, and there was like kind of a general consensus it would be a good idea. Unfortunately, we weren't obviously in that meeting, so we don't know to what kind of extent it was presented to the trustees. And we're still trying to figure out, I guess, what we can do in the meantime, because that would have to be approved during the May trustee meeting. So we're kind of in this stage where we're trying to get best prepared so that we have the approval by the trustee meeting. And I guess some of the things we're working through as a part of that, with some of the questions Principal Rawson raised when he met with us about the year-long theme proposal, and also our other general plans, was about the, there's kind of two main issues. And one was about trying to decide how much to make mandatory and how much to make optional. So not much was optional, not much was mandatory during the 50 years of coeducation. And while that had good attendance generally, it was much more focused around the alumni community that had the better attendance than the actual students, particularly with the glorious item issue. But at the same time, we don't want it to become this sort of thing where students feel resentment towards about having to put another thing into very busy schedules, because by making it mandatory, because we're worried that wouldn't have the right level of actual engagement. Just kind of a lot of people being talked at. So that was one of the big things that was brought up. And then the other big thing we're trying to wrestle with is making sure that we can have this year-long theme on environmentalism, but making sure it doesn't diminish by any means any of the sort of anti-racist commitments that the administration has been making recently, because it doesn't want to be seen as sort of a shift from that to a different year. Yet at the same time, we found a lot of Principal Rawson's language around that as almost kind of a way to take a smaller commitment to environmentalism, and we don't want him to kind of use that as an out either. So trying to find a way to wed those two things really nicely, which to me seems really obvious because you can't have true racial justice without environmental justice, and really the whole issues are connected. But yeah, so those are the two things we're wrestling with.
An update on that, when we last met with Mr. McTamney, he said that Principal Rawson was considering having a year with like environmentalism as a pillar, but not the total focus. So yeah, we're just gonna have to meet and talk about that again, but that's what he's currently thinking.
Yeah, we'll obviously strongly encourage him to see that environmental justice is, inherently tied to anti-racism. So it's not like we would be sacrificing one for the other. They very much have to go together. Right. So yeah. Oh yes, the other thing that we wanted to talk about is there were a few questions in the email chains about Climate Action Day this year. So because we have only just started talking to Mr. McTamney about Climate Action Day, there's not really much we can do at this point. They've already planned most of it. So we can't really participate very much in the planning for this Climate Action Day, but hopefully with the year-long theme of environmentalism, we'll extend what we do in one day to an entire year, and then that, as we said, would serve as a jumping off point for hopefully a lot more awareness on campus about global warming.
Yeah, I would just suggest that you have now been included in faculty discussions about curriculum, you said, because you asked for it. And so if that goes well, I think that would suggest that, including students in planning for Climate Action Day next year should be an easy ask.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've asked Mr. McTamney already if we could be involved in future Climate Action Day planning. So I think he's down for that.
Good.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything? Oh, yes. So for this next term, normal club events, we're planning to have just last year. Yes, last year we had a woods cleanup where it was a competition. Like there were several groups of students who went into the woods and collected trash. And then we're also having a weeding of invasive species event probably. And it was, oh yes, the solar panel tour. So there's a bunch of solar panels on top of the gym, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The field house.
Yes, the field house, and we'll take the club up there probably.
Yeah, kind of more short-term goals are making sure we spend spring term trying to just raise general environmental appreciation on campus through those sorts of things. Hopefully making them kind of semi-regular, so students, if they want to study break, can spend some time in nature doing some pretty kind of immediate hands-on things to help.
So are you collectively feeling better in any way about how you're being received by by teachers and administrators, and you're making progress, or you're just, is that too soon to ask that question?
A little bit, because I guess like we've just introduced these things. Mm-hmm. They're very much in their nascent stages, so we're hoping that our second meeting with Principal Rawson, in our second meeting, we can see some concrete concrete ways that we can proceed. And then, of course, there's the big May trustee meeting where Mr. McTammany and the Sustainability Committee, so Mr. McTammany, Mr. Biggins, and whoever else is on there, I don't even know, but they will present their climate action proposal to the trustees. The trustees will say whatever they say, and then hopefully either we can be there or Mr. McTammany will propose our proposal on behalf of us. So it'll probably be that second meeting with Rawson and the May meeting that we really will know how things will be.
I will admit, you probably don't know about this, but next Wednesday, so 6 days from now, a sustainability update is being offered to the alumni community that Mr. McTammany and Biggins will present information about their plans, and so that we're looking forward to. I think it's true that all 11 members of the CAL team, the alumni, so we're all registered to be part of that conversation, to watch that presentation. So I think there's, I'm beginning to see movement on a lot of different fronts at the same time. So
Great.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you guys could send, if there's a recording or any sort of just a quick overview of what's happened at that meeting, that'd
we
be
can
really
probably
great.
report on it. I don't know that they're going to that the school record it. But I'll try to find out.
Okay,
I
cool.
think they've done this, they did this last year, just about this time. They did it in April last year. And they did it the year before. They didn't have Zoom at the time,
Right.
but alumni could attend and message in questions.
Right.
So this is another iteration of that. They did record those. So I would expect that they're going to record this one as well.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could just find out. I just know that about that. That'd be awesome. I just know at least the co-eds especially have been feeling very frustrated about, I guess, the lack of transparency between the great things that are going on in the sustainability community and the students. There's been a lot of, we're trying to actively help your guys' cause. Why can't we have a seat at the table? It just doesn't make a huge amount of sense, sort of thing. And making sure that we're not just reinventing the wheel and not asking for things the administration's already doing, but also still able to hold them to the right standard has been very frustrating for us. So yeah, any information you have about things that the school are doing that they don't really tell us is always very much appreciated.
Mm-hmm. Oh, another thing, Alicia, do you want to talk about the energy audit? And yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so hi. Basically, we have information about our energy use on campus provided by Mr. Biggins, and that's already in like a presentation form with all these graphs. And so we're thinking of making it into flyers or smaller posters, just so it's easier for people to access and read, because it took us quite a lot of time to even like find this information. So like we can just present it in a easy to understand way and just like short information pamphlets.
Yeah, but probably electronic, obviously, so we don't print a bunch of.
Yeah.
Good plan.
Yeah.
And we can also share it on our Instagram. And I don't know if you guys know our Instagram, but that's exeter.eac. And we post like posters and information on there too sometimes.
Terrific.
Oh,
John, you're on mute.
You're muted, John.
Yes, a question I have is, when you have an idea for things you want included in classes or initiatives you have of how you can be more connected with the things the school is doing, how do you present it? Do you present is it something you write up and give it to a particular faculty member that you're interested in, who's going to, you might have include that in his courses, or do you go to Mr. McTammany and propose it to him? What's the way you propose these curriculum initiatives?
so when we were talking to the faculty, we emailed them directly, and then we met with a few of them. But then we found out that the sustainability committee was doing the same exact thing. So we are planning to kind of pause on that and see how far they've gotten and see how we can proceed together.
Good.
It's a lot of waiting between now and when we get back and are able to meet with people.
Yeah. And that's honestly been a big part of our process, is figuring out who the best people are to propose things to. The coming up with ideas haven't been that difficult, but trying to figure out where the change most likely comes from in the curriculum. So kind of it depends by department, but I guess some departments it's really teacher drawn. So we could either kind of go through and contact almost like every single teacher in the history department, but that's not the best use of our time, like I guess most productive means of kind of making change. So we've decided to take more of that kind of higher level pressure, because talking with one of the teachers about how that change was made for the US history curriculum, which is still very much a change in process to make it more accurate, I guess, in its telling of history, and making sure it's not a glossed over one that is very inaccurate around and teaches kind of some pretty white supremacist ideals. That all those justice, equity, and inclusion things have been really coming. There's been nothing necessarily changed in the teachers where they're like, you have to teach this book, you have to you have to make sure you include this many readings, but instead it's just been a kind of a general pressure from the administration and making those resources available. So that's why we've decided going to the administration. So that's been mainly because of that, Principal Rawson's time is very, very busy. So we have to kind of make sure we have a big collected group of ideas that we try to present as like one proposal versus going to him with kind of every single thing that comes up.
That sounds like the right strategy.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent strategy. And now we've got this two-pronged approach, because the administration's hearing from you, the students, and from us, a bunch of gray-haired alumni who want to make things happen. It's interesting. When we had our meeting with Principal Rawson, I think our overall impression was that he was very proud of all the concrete, hard steps that have been taken in terms of, saving energy and so on and so forth in campus buildings. And he tried to steer us when we mentioned fundraising into helping pay for, I guess, a replacement wetland, because some wetland is going to be disturbed by the solar array installation. But and I think he may have been a bit perplexed by the fact that no, we weren't going to be satisfied with that. We really wanted to change things, in the curriculum. So I think it's really, as we said at the beginning, and I said both at our meetings, we're here to support you. And, if it sounds like you've made an awful lot of progress since we last talked, which is terrific. And then Conrad or John can talk about things that we have done since we last talked.
Well, we've had I guess we've had a number of meetings. We have we're establishing connections with as many people at different levels that we think can be helpful as possible. And I think we're kind of feeling our way too to see where we can be most effective. But I'd like to say that we've made enormous progress in lots of different directions. I'm not sure that that would be quite accurate.
Could I ask you guys, just to get a feeling of the situation now on campus, how many of you are there 16 clubs that are environmental clubs and are paying some attention to the climate crisis on campus? Are there 16 clubs?
So as far as I know, there aren't that many. I think that there's 3 main ones.
Okay.
Us, Exeter Climate Lobby, which is more on the political side of things. Tanya and I are co-heads of that.
No, I think you sent us
2
a
other groups.
list before that had maybe 4 or 5, but it's in your understanding that you're not aware of 16 different clubs. How many
No.
of you guys
no.
have taken Andrew McTammany's EPS 450?
Which one is 450? Is that? Yeah, I'm not sure.
EPS 450. It's McTammany's course that is given in the fall. And the first half of it is about geology and planetary history, and then the second half of it
Earth
actually addresses
systems.
climate crisis.
Earth systems, Tanya. It's
Earth
called.
system.
Yes, yeah.
Have any of you taken that?
Has the course been offered to your knowledge? Do enough people
Yeah.
sign up for it that it happened, that it's given?
Do you have an idea how many people took it this last fall?
I'm not
No.
sure. I think Tanya's the only senior, and I think it's only offered to seniors, which might be why we're struggling to come up with like much of a consensus is not.
Yeah, no, it says it's offered to uppers and seniors, but I'm just curious. Then the goal. I think Saphira, did you take the goal this winter?
I took
Oh,
Go, and that's
yes.
also for like uppers and seniors.
How many others took it?
I didn't take gold, but I took. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think there's only 2 of us in EAC who took it. Me and Bradley, and I don't think Bradley is part of these meetings. So.
Mm-hmm. And are there any other courses that you've taken or you're even aware of that really focus on climate change issues rather than something general about environment and this and that, but really actually address climate change?
So there's several environmental courses,
Right.
like environmental science, but there's no course that is like climate change or global warming,
Mm-hmm.
EPS, whatever. No, there's nothing like
Right.
that.
We've got from the description in the course catalog of those, I think, well, I know of 2, but maybe 3 environmental courses. They basically, they don't even mention climate. They talk about population and resource use and general things like that, but not climate change.
It also
Just
depends on
get
which
an
course you
idea.
take.
Pardon?
Last term I took humans and the environment, which is a history course. And even though it says like general humans and the environment, it focused a lot on climate. And our
Okay.
whole final project in like last 2 weeks was focused on climate solutions and writing policy proposals. So I think it depends a lot on the individual teachers. And sadly, the teacher who taught that course is now gone.
Who was that? Who was that teacher?
Miss Southworth, she's moved to Maine though. But yeah, Miss Southworth was a great climate change
Southworth?
teacher.
Yeah, I've heard that from others.
So, his name is Salter, S-A-L-T-E-R?
Southworth,
Okay.
I believe. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Southworth, that's correct.
And what was the course, the title of the course? Or the name?
Humans and the environment.
Okay.
And so this theme, this year-long theme that you have is kind of what we've been talking about of having lectures and discussion groups on various aspects of the climate crisis, throughout the entire year.
Yes. Can you all see what I sent in the chat? It's a Google document, and I also sent the PDF version, but the PDF isn't complete. The Google Doc is. So that's our complete proposal. If you click on that, that's what we're
Okay.
asking
Great.
for.
Yes, I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that has both the this is what we presented to Principal Rawson, and it has both the environmental theme for the year, as well as kind of our goals for curriculum and the idea of an environmental diploma, which I think Tanya brought up. It was
Yeah.
Tanya's idea.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, yeah. I took a quick look at it. It looks great, but I'll read it
Yeah.
more carefully when we have time. That's great.
Mr. Coles, did you want to say something? You're muted again. You're
You're
muted.
muted, John.
Now,
There you
yeah,
go.
I was thinking that together with that master document you have there, if you can identify those teachers that already seem most interested in the climate crisis? You probably can figure that out pretty quickly, can't you? Just by asking other students and asking around a little bit. And I think if you send different messages of things that you want to know more about, that you want to learn about, and you think this might be a good idea, does this sound like a good idea? Suggestions, and you copy McTammany so he knows what you're doing. I think that really builds a lot of momentum. Together with that master document, have just individual thoughts or initiatives you have, and just feed them to the faculty, because by far you're the most effective route to changing curriculum is the students talking to the faculty. Faculties are very sensitive to having alumni telling them, what should be taught in the school, or administration. Yeah, faculties are just very sensitive about their stuff. So, but when it comes from the students, which is their reason for being, I mean, that's what they're there for. They're much more sensitive and they'll react much more positively, we think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that all of that is really important, but we'll probably hold off on sending any more emails out to people until after our meeting with Principal Rawson. That should be telling. That will tell us whether we can rely on the administration to kind of help us through, or if we'll have to go it alone.
Is that next meeting with the principal already scheduled?
It's not scheduled. It doesn't have a solid date, but probably in the second or third week back.
Okay.
For the end of the month.
Yes.
And I think our reasoning for that is essentially there is kind of in the trustees a team of faculty that they're already working with curriculum. And we don't want to waste their time by reaching out to the same people to say, do you want to be on this team when they're already on one? So that's the one we've we're communicating with, and we're finally going to be able to talk to. But yeah, kind of building off of Safira, if we see that sort of like administrative led change isn't hearing us out or going the places we want to be, we definitely think that sort of more grassroots, talking to individual faculty about the changes they can make into the way they teach classes is the route we'll probably take. But yeah, thank you, John.
I think there's a big opportunity in what you mentioned at first, that curriculum, there's a lot of freedom in the curriculum. There are not a lot of restrictions or minimum requirements into what has to be in each course. So there's a lot of leeway there. So I think that's a great opportunity, and it shouldn't be only looked at as courses. I mean, it's everything that affects your lives, everything that has to do with your daily life and your connection with nature and your connection with efforts to improve our relationship with nature. And since the school is doing a lot of these initiatives like the geothermal and the sun farms and the things on top of the gym and the composting and the dietary things, the things in the dining halls, those things, even I understood from Principal Rawson that he doesn't believe those things have been particularly well explained to the students, nor are the students particularly connected to those efforts. So there are things that are happening kind of, they're not being used as educational opportunities at all.
Well, one thing I wondered too, if any of you students would be interested in any of these projects that are going on with Exeter's physical plan, for instance, if there could be a mentorship that was developed, with regard to solar panels or wetland mitigation or anything else that's going to happen with the physical plan. Couldn't that be an opportunity for the students to actually contribute to the completion of one of these projects? And maybe, suggesting that if any of you are interested in doing that and getting academic credit for it. I mean, I don't mean just doing it, all do it in my spare time. No, I mean, doing it for academic credit, whether that might, kill two birds with one stone, that you could get academic credit, but you're also working on something that the academy wants to have done, for its physical plan.
Well, they do that through the goal. The goal makes it possible to do that, isn't it?
Right. But maybe there are other opportunities too for mentorships. I don't know.
And again, I think Gull is only seniors. I think it's only very, very much at the end of their time there.
Well, that's easy to fix. Let's just say it's
Yeah.
open to anyone, that's
Right.
Yeah.
doesn't really work.
Tony, do you want to talk? I know you did go last term. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that went? Because I've heard varying kind of reviews about that class.
I have a question. Of the 7 of you that are on this call, 6 meet one criteria. You know what that criteria is?
Being female.
What?
Being female.
That's right. And I'm curious why, whether you can talk to what it is that is animating and energizing the feminine energy, but maybe not the masculine energy, because I think that that's a really important topic that is just ignored.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Last year, I would say it's safe to say that there were no boys, or like one. So there were no boys in the club. And I do not have any guesses as to why that could be. Climate change affects everyone. So I don't really know why boys wouldn't join a club that they could do good things in. But this year, we were able to recruit more. It's more balanced now. But on this call, not everyone is represented.
Well, so far we've seen 2 boys who have, Chris and then William last time. So
Yeah, I guess on these calls in general, like these calls, not everyone is represented.
Right.
We have a lot more members in the club that don't join these calls.
Sure, but
that's their choice.
What I'm wondering is what caused you to join this club? And why that wouldn't be part of what male students would be motivated to. If something moved you to join this club, do you know what it is?
A care about the planet and my
Mhm.
life. So I think that's a pretty, it has the potential to be a universal thing, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why there used to be an imbalanced demographic, but now it is more.
Do you think it would be part of a long-range strategy to try to recruit more male or female members? I think
Yeah,
one of them
recruiting
said,
all members, recruiting any members is of course always a goal of ours. Yeah, but right now, I think there was a meeting that we came out of and we were really happy because it was so balanced. But
And how many people were in that meeting?
I don't know, Fee.
I would say, like, I would estimate probably about 20.
I think around 20.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more. And I would say that had a good, probably maybe 50-50. But typically I would say generally it's more of a like 1/3 sort of kind of balance. It ebbs and flows. It's interesting. I've seen it in a few other clubs as well. I'm also part of the Democratic Club on campus, and that is, again, has much more of a shift with women in it, which is a relatively recent thing according to the club advisor. But again, and then other clubs less so, like debate is more balanced. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about, and I guess interesting to kind of think about, just general trends of who's more likely to be happy with the system that's set up. But the I would say, like, with general recruitment of members, that also goes up. Just any way we can recruit more people, that recruits kind of people across the board. I would also say clubs tend, like, I guess a more surface level reason is I've seen a lot of like club members being initially pulled from friend groups or dorm affiliations, especially with younger members. And since those are can be a bit more gendered, that may be why as well. But that's one of the big things we're hoping with a lot of these kind of small short-term initiatives that we have going into the spring around getting people outside, just trying to get people to come to one-time events that might not be scheduled during our same club meeting time, so that they feel, even if they can't in their schedule find like the time to make it to every single meeting, feel like they can be kind of a part of a small, hopefully fun activity that helps the environment and kind of increases that engagement.
Mhm.
Do you think that perhaps, and this is an inquiry on my part, that you have less male members because of the patriarchy and just this kind of sense of male control, male dominance, which is also contradictory to another aspect that what you guys represent as women is you obviously represent the feminine, and what do we call the planet we're on? We call it, or her, Mother Earth. And so there's this clear sense of connection that's based on your gender, that of one of protection, one of inclusion, and that message is probably from what you guys had said earlier, when you said most of the students don't seem to care because they come from wealthy families and they don't feel like the environmental problems or the climate problems are something they have to worry about. There's an elitist separation. So I don't know to what extent you guys could, or if any of this even makes any sense, and whether or not you can leverage it somehow to get the message to more people.
Yeah. I have a question kind of related to that, not directly, but it's, I guess, are you all aware that the IPCC, you know what the IPCC is, right? The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They just released a new report about 2 weeks ago. Are you all aware of that? Have you seen have you seen any reports on what was in the report, or have you looked at it, or do you know? I mean, it's not a particularly encouraging document, as I hope you understand. I mean, I was wondering, there's we could share with you things that I think are a good overview. There's about a 1 hour interview done by people in Canada about somebody who's been following all these reports and been involved on them from the beginning. And it's a stark but I think a realistic report on what's happening. And there was a pretty good just one sort of long article in the New York Times not too long ago that I could say, if you're interested in seeing what people are saying about what that report says, I think it's important. So if you'd like to have them sent, you don't have to. I can forward them to you, and you decide what to do with them if you want.
It's a must read. I think it's a must read, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. It's very important I mean, I find that reality is a good thing to know about. I mean, this is future reality, but it's pretty, the IPCC reports are, if anything, conservative, because it represents the consensus of essentially scientists from all of the countries in the world that participate in this. And so it's not nothing gets into the report that isn't approved by everyone who has a say in it. So it's
that would be great, Comrade. I think
okay.
I've been thinking about this a bit because you guys send us all over a lot of really interesting articles, but I think with the nature of them being sent over and like really important resources sent through email, especially when Exonians get so many emails, generally it can get a bit, I guess, buried in other things if you don't have the time right kind of when you receive that email to read it through. I was wondering if it might be better to kind of create a running Google Doc where we can like link in articles. That way we can kind of.
We already did that. We already did that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
I
that
can-
was, I think that one was more general to specific resources about the
Oh.
curriculum, but like just things like that where it's not necessarily super specific to what, I mean, obviously it's massively related, but it while it might not help us with curriculum issues, it's like really important for everybody to know and for the club to keep updated. So having like that as a way, so that way like we can periodically also go in and kind of try to organize the documents. So if somebody's like got a question about overall kind of where we're at, they can look at the ICC kind of reports, or if they've got like something specific they want to look at within a kind of subdivision, that would be super helpful. But does that sound good?
Sure, I think we can do that. So I think you already, maybe there's a document that you've sent, that you put out that we could put things in. I apologize for being a little bit vague on how it would work, but
So here, I sent a new one that's blank. The other one can be just for curriculum materials, and then this one can be like anything interesting that you'd like to show us.
so this last one that was you just sent a minute ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So we can put.
We can upload to that when we're on it. We click on it, we get on the site, and then there's a button that we can click to upload something that we have.
You put a link in it, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can copy and paste the link and then put it in the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Do you put
does
the link
somebody,
up?
do you get notified when something's added to that document, or do you look at it regularly, or how's that work?
We will look at it regularly.
Okay.
Yeah, we could kind of involve it in our general club meetings, just being like, here's kind of some updates from the week about general climate news, including added resources, and just make sure it's present. Kind of just a quick reminder at the beginning of most meetings. We meet on a weekly basis, just reminding people where the resources are at. Yeah.
One of the things that I'm afraid I'm going to sound like a broken record, and you guys can all do a thumbs down, which will cause me to stop, which is fine. Or you can do okay, Joe, we're done. But my concern is with things like the IPCC report or even a COP26 report, is it's focusing on the I guess I want to say the secondary effects here. They're focusing on the atmosphere, the oceans, glaciers, and so on, and to some extent the implications of those things, but it's not at all focusing on how we got here and why we're continuing to do this, which has really virtually nothing to do with science. It has everything to do with culture and with all kinds of layers of culture, like patriarchy just being one, big one, but not the only one. And so I'm hoping that in your curricular studies, you don't miss the forest for the trees. It's really easy to say, oh, let's talk about parts per million CO2 equivalent. We can talk about increase in hurricane strength and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's not going to solve this problem. In fact, we don't need to develop any more technology to solve this problem. This is not a technological problem. And so I know it's easy to, when you think about curriculum, to go with something that meets sort of a science standard. Can you do a double-blind experiment, or multiple people have looked at the same information, conclude the same thing? That's all a distraction. And I just hope that you guys are going to cut through. Each one of you needs to have an emotional and intellectual machete, and you have to bring it down hard and slam it on the table and make sure that you're cutting off the bullshit and you're focusing on why we have this problem and how we're going to extract ourselves from it. And basically there's virtually no conversation about that. And you guys, because you're women and because you're young and because you are going to be directly impacted by this way more than we are, you're the tip of the sword. Each one of you is a form of Greta. And I really think that's wonderful. But even Greta isn't going down to the level that needs to be gone down to. And I'm just encouraging you to be sure to get down to the ground of what is causing this whole problem. Because climate change is not the problem. That is a consequence of the problem. And one could say, well, it's capitalism. Well, that's closer, but that's not the ground either. So you have to keep going down. What is it that is the, let's call it the origin story of this whole problem? Now, I have some ideas. I'm sure you guys have some ideas, and this isn't the time to discuss them, although I sure hope that I haven't read your documents, but it looks like you've really put a lot of time in, and I think that's wonderful. But I just want to really make sure that you are, even with curriculum development, that you don't lose, keep your eye on the real prize here.
Mhm. That's why we're not only going to try to increase climate change education in the science classes. That's why we're taking a holistic approach and tackling the humanities too, which will be really important. Business class, well, not business classes, economics classes. So yes, I have to go, but as always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you all.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just echoing what Sophia said. I think that's why we all got so frustrated initially when you guys talked to us about how you went to Principal Rawson and he said, look at all these great classes we've got for environmentalism. We don't have a problem. And they're all just science classes looking at the results and the effects, but not the real root of the problem.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Well, another thing that, you're going to probably immediately, if you haven't already determined that I'm an outlier here, is we're talking disciplines. What's not being talked is interdisciplinary. This is an issue that is not going to be solved, even if you go a math class and a science class and a history class. That isn't it. You've got to have somebody to pull it all together. And an interdisciplinary approach is really what Exeter ought to be doing all together. That, in my view, disciplines are so 18th century, we're in the 21st century. It might be fine for grad school. It's not fine for, high school or even college, really. So I'm asking you to essentially pitch or elbow or otherwise remind the school of the importance of its pedagogy and of moving to a practice of educating you that is consistent with the century we're in. So I will now.
Well said, Joe.
Well said.
Did I say something? Everybody's silent.
We're absorbing it. I mean,
I thought it was, yeah, really well put and definitely a good summary of all the things that we see wrong with the curriculum at the moment and exactly where we want to go. So definitely a great way to summarize it. And we'll definitely be using some sentences from there when we talk to Rawson about what exactly the issue is. I know that so I think I have to head out about 8 o'clock East Coast time. So I thought this was a really great conversation, and I know quite a few other people might have had to kind of call it at 5 as well. But do you want to kind of talk about potential next meeting steps? You guys,
Yeah.
Sure. Good.
yeah. So
What's
we've
good
got
for
that,
you?
yeah. So we've got that meeting coming up with Ross, and so maybe after that would be a good time to check in. Does that sound good to you
Yeah.
guys?
You think
Very
that's
good.
about three or 4 weeks in the future is when you're gonna have that
Yeah.
meeting? Yeah, sure. So like a month from now or something, whenever you've had that, when you know that meeting is gonna happen, then you can let us know and say, a week after that or something, just
Or
whatever.
as quickly as possible after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have to wait a week.
A few days, yeah, you don't have to wait a week. Just let us know when it's gonna happen and then we can, and then say when you would like to meet after that, and we'll try to make it happen.
All right.
Awesome. Anybody else? Any other students have anything to add?
I don't know, just one thing I was thinking of when we were talking, I think Mr. Simmons said a lot about this, but when we were talking about like how this is like the students here in this meeting are mostly like women identifying. Along that line, I think it's just interesting because we spend so much time like saying like, yeah, we need women in STEM, women in STEM, but as soon as like in this example, right, we do have like a like female dominated whatever like room, it's all of a sudden, well, where are all the men? And I think instead of like asking like, well, how, like we need more boys involved, like why don't we celebrate this, that we do have women who are involved and doing things, so we should just use that as it is, and men will come in eventually. They always do. They already are on all the boards and everything. So while we have this group of women, why like we should, I think, take advantage of that and use it as it is. And yes, like of course we want to improve enrollment overall, but like I think it's just like we should just like acknowledge that it's a good thing, and that we should like and not necessarily be like, well, where are the men? Just be like, well, we have a group of women, let's roll with it.
Right. Well said.
Good thought, Tristan. I was wondering too during this discussion whether all the male students are at the business club. They care more about business instead of the environment.
Maybe. And it's also like when it is like a group of men, we see that as the default, right? So we're not asking necessarily, where are the women in this conversation? But when it is a room full of women, we do ask, where are the men in this conversation? I think that's just something to think about, because it's also like there's like this statistic where it's like, I think it's like 18% or something is like the threshold where it's seen as like women dominated, because that's what you see in like crowds and movies and things like that. So like I guess just asking ourselves, because gender and race and that intersection play a huge role in environmentalism, and like indigenous women specifically. And I guess just like thinking about like when there's a group of mostly women, what like what do we think about that, and why do we think about that? And I guess just because we are environmentally focused, like how does that play into how we view environmentalism, and who's at the table talking about these environmentalist meetings, and whose voices are having an input. Yeah, just what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for
Excellent.
that. We should also tell you that we don't want to be alone in this endeavor. So we're going to be reaching out to alumni in all other classes to try to recruit some people who are thinking along our lines. And we've already proposed or composed a note to send out to the class leaders, all the alumni who are class leaders. And Joe's working hard on trying to figure out the logistics of getting all those emails back and responding to them when we do hear from people. But it's very much we're starting the ball on that front.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you so much. I think we've got such a great network out there with alumni, and I know for me, just speaking with you groups, the group of you, it's been so kind of eye-opening about kind of thinking about what we can do as students, and thinking how much the administration can listen to us in our kind of individual powers as students. So there's even more classes out there, and I'm sure the more people I meet, the more kind of my perspective will be opened, especially as those people come from more diverse, all sorts of diverse ages and backgrounds. And yeah, so this sounds like a great idea. Thank you so much. And yeah, I also thought Tristan put it very well.
It made sense to us, and we think we'll get a high level of interest, particularly along among the more recent grads, because it seems to be the youth of the world that's demanding action by, the people who are in the positions of power right now, which makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. So it sounds like we'll have quite a lot to update you on next time we meet, and you'll have some great stuff to update us on as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for meeting. I think
Okay.
I will be able to send the recording of this later tonight. So
great. Thank you so much, Comrade. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Till next time.